Hi Virgo, this is Tisch Aitken, and this is your astrological report for the month of June 2022. If you could please subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate it. And I thank you. And there's so much happening. The month of May was a really intense month with a lot of drama, a lot of changes out of the blue. The eclipses were in the Taurus Scorpio axis, and for you they occurred in your house of publishing and teaching and travel. That was where the partial solar eclipse in Taurus occurred, and the eclipse in Scorpio was in your house of news and information and local community. These are financial signs, and Scorpio is very emotionally intense. It's also a very psychological sign. But the first eclipse was combined with Uranus, the planet of surprise and the unexpected, and it is the great awakener. And Uranus has a similar effect as eclipses. It can bring shocking news, good and bad, out of the blue. Whatever you think it is, it's most likely something else. And that was the big eclipse at the very end of April on the 30th in your house of promotion and manifestation. And then the second eclipse was a total lunar eclipse, very, very powerful, within 3 degrees of the nodes of fate, of the south node of karma. There's something to release in that. And that was in your house of information. And a heavy eclipse, it squared Saturn, the planet of karma and responsibility. And so not easy. And for you, Saturn's transiting in your house of work and daily routine, and that's where you're really trying to anchor your goals through your creative expression, through finding love and happiness in a very challenging time. So the good news is we're out of the eclipse drama. We begin the month, and there are quite a few points in both the signs of Aries and Taurus. Aries rules your house of healing and transformation, and it deals with debt and taxes and financial partnerships. Jupiter, which is the luckiest planet, entered the Cardinal Fire sign of Aries on May 10th, which is the day that Mercury actually retrograded in Gemini in your house of career and life goals. So for you, the Mercury retrograde story began reassessing your career, maybe returning to things or hearing from people from the past. And then Mercury re-entered the sign of Taurus on May 22nd in your house of publishing and teaching and promotion and travel and publicity. But now with Jupiter, it's transiting in your house of financial partnerships and dealing with healing. It brings new financial opportunities, can be excellent for financial partnerships. Jupiter will be transiting in Aries until October 28th in this sector of your chart. Also good for dealing with the pain in a more lighthearted approach, feeling some levity in dealing with very difficult issues. And when Jupiter returns to Pisces, it will be expanding your relationships and partnerships. It will be there a brief while until December 20th and return to the sign of Aries. So we've got that fire in the sky now, good and bad. People are acting very fiery, but also it's about expanding through having courage and passion. Mars, which is the planet of action and the ruler of the sign of Aries, entered Aries on May 24th, where it will transit until July 5th, also transiting in your house of financial partnerships and debt and healing and empowerment, and giving you power to face the wounds in a way in which you feel courageous. And so we begin, and a lot of focus in Aries. We've got Mars, Jupiter, Chiron, the wounded healer, and Eris, the goddess of discord, are all transiting in Aries in your house of debt and financial partnerships and healing and dealing with blocked wounds in order to transcend and evolve. And there are quite a few points in the fellow earth sign of Taurus in your house of promotion, really getting you to promote yourself and tap into hope. Venus rules the sign of Taurus. It's transiting there a little while longer. Uranus, the great awakener. The north node of karma, where you're meant to grow in this house of hope and optimism. And Mercury is in Taurus because it's about to station direct. So a lot of focus on manifestation and on dealing with promoting yourself. On June 3rd, Mercury stations direct at 4 o'clock a.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 26 degrees and 5 minutes of the fixed Earth sign of Taurus. And this occurs in your house of hope and optimism, and also sets off within a degree where the total lunar eclipse occurred on May 15th or May 16th, depending on where you live. Getting more information as to how you can move ahead with all that's happened in the last 6 weeks, because eclipse season began really in the middle of April, 2 weeks prior to the partial solar eclipse. So now you're moving ahead, and Mercury rules your chart and it rules your house of career, and this is positive too for getting things accomplished and planning ahead. On the following day, Saturn stations retrograde at 5:47 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 25 degrees and 15 minutes of the fixed air sign of Aquarius in your house of work and daily routine. And that's where you're anchoring your goals, really trying to be focused on being healthy, on being regimented in your routine. You're a very routine oriented sign that is the sector of the chart that deals with Virgo. How can you be more productive? You're such a hard-working sign to begin with, but also ensure care of your health in the process. And so Mercury squaring Saturn, that can feel a bit like the glass is half empty, but it also means to focus on work, which you have no problem with. On June 6th, the Sun and Chiron make a very good aspect. This Chiron is the wounded healer, and they form a harmonious aspect at 4:44 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, bringing light and levity to the healing process. On June 10th, Mercury, the planet of communication, forms an excellent aspect to Pluto, the planet of empowerment and transformation. And that occurs at 5:21 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Excellent for romantic situations. Maybe you're going on a date for you. Excellent for all forms of communication, doing research, and just feeling empowered in your thinking. On June 13th, Mercury changes signs and enters the mutable air sign of Gemini at 11:27 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, transiting in your house of career and life direction, and it will be there until July 5th. And so this is positive for you for really getting going on, marketing yourself, on dealing with others. It's good for sales and good for just getting a lot of work done. On June 14th, there is a full moon that takes place at 7:52 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 23 degrees and 25 minutes of the mutable fire sign of Sagittarius. And this occurs in your house of home and family and emotional foundation. Maybe there's a little bit of emotional energy at your house or dealing with relatives. The moon loves being in Sagittarius. It's an optimistic placement. It's not heavy like it is in Scorpio when we had that total lunar eclipse, but it could be maybe some issues, or it could be that you've been working on a project at home, or you work for yourself and it brings completion to something you've been working on. On June 16th, the Sun forms a positive aspect to Saturn at 3:13 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Good for feeling centered and getting things done. The Sun also squares Neptune at 9:41 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That could be a bit confusing with relationships, but I also feel The Saturn energy helps to stabilize, and it could be good for doing creative projects, creative thinking, creative writing, tapping into manifesting, and maybe just communication could be a little wonky, but not a big deal. On June 20th, Mercury forms an excellent aspect to Jupiter, the luckiest planet, at 3:44 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Good for feeling optimistic, good for doing healing work. On June 21st, we have the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere and the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. And it's when the sun reaches the maximum declination above the celestial equator in the northern hemisphere, where I am, and that begins the summer season. And in the southern hemisphere, the sun is at its lowest declination. And the sun stops for a few days, and we reflect on what the season has in store. In Latin, sol means the sun, and sistere means to stop. We stop and reflect. And I cast a chart for the solstice, and I cast it for Washington, D.C. It has Gemini ascendant, which means that Mercury rules the chart and is in its dignity in the sign of Gemini, in the house of dreams and spirituality. There is a lot of focus on Aries. Moon is in Aries, conjunct Jupiter, the luckiest planet, in the house of groups and community, finding courage to expand with others and the support of others, finding your tribe. There's also a lot of emphasis in Taurus. Venus rules the sign of Taurus. It's in its dignity in Taurus. It's conjunct the north node of karma in the house of spirituality and dreams and selfless love. Uranus, the great awakener, is also conjunct the north node, bringing awakening and finding innovative ways to come together and bring love in a time that needs it, and the world really needs love. And on that date, Venus forms a beautiful trine to Pluto. That's an aspect where they're 120 degrees apart, and that occurs at 4:23 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, helping to heal love, helping to up-level the love. Very, very nice aspect. On June 22nd, Venus changes signs and enters the mutable air sign of Gemini at 8:34 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, where it will transit until July 17th, transiting in your house of career and life direction. Excellent for making a good impression on others if you're interviewing, excellent for partnerships with all sorts of people, and bringing beauty and creativity to your work and to your career. On June 25th, Jupiter, the luckiest planet, aspects the north node of karma, and that could bring fated opportunities and situations that come in for you professionally or financially, and that's a really nice energy. On June 27th, Mars, the planet of action and passion, forms a helpful aspect to Saturn at 6:29 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's good for getting things done and, good, productive work. June 28th, we have another station. Neptune, the planet of dreams and illusion, retrogrades at 25 degrees and 23 minutes of the mutable water sign of Pisces in your house of partnerships and relationships. You feel the fog 5 days before and 5 days after. Some things could dissolve with that, or there could just be a really strong psychic, sensitive energy that's very potent in the air. And it occurs at 3:54 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And on that day, there's a lot going on. It's the day of a new moon, time to set intentions. Let's see, we've got the sun squares Jupiter at 8:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That can be excessive, but it's optimistic energy. The new moon occurs at 10:52 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 7 degrees and 23 minutes of the cardinal water sign of Cancer. And this is for you in your house of friends and groups and networking. The new moon is always a time to set intentions and plant new seeds. Do the law of abundance to bring in abundance into your life, and good for, again, meeting new people, connecting with others. And on that date, the two benefics are in harmony. Venus forms a beautiful aspect to Jupiter at 11:52 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, bringing love and creativity and expansion to this new moon. I wish you a lot of luck, Virgo, and thank you.